Welcome back to the... What is that sound? What is that? It's driving me crazy! Welcome back to the Scale Builders Guild. Thanks again for watching. Today we're taking a first look, review, and run of the GMADE BOM. Here it is in front of you right now on the table. It's a truck. It's a four-wheel drive trail truck. GMADE has made such things as the R1, the GOM. What's that other one? The leaf sprung.
Well, we're waiting.
Sawback. Of course. I thought it was worth checking out. I wanted to see how this truck was engineered, and I wanted to see if it was something that I would continue to use and have in my arsenal of scaled trail trucks. So let's get straight into it. Here it is. It's a truggy style 4x4. There's a lot of similarities. Well, actually, before we get into the similarities of this truck to others, let's take a look at this body and cage combination that they've built here. It comes as you see. Of course, this is a kit, so it requires a lot of assembly. First of all, let's talk briefly about how this kit went together. The instructions are well diagrammed and fairly easy to follow if you've got any experience in building a truck before. The way they label and put the parts bags together does leave something to be desired. I'm used to being able to go from one step to the next and have a corresponding bag of parts to go with that step. In the case of the GMADE BOM, all of the hardware is separated by its type, but there is no rhyme or reason to how those bags are put together. So you will have to go in and hunt around for parts as you build through each step. It's not optimal, and it does add a lot of time to a build. I much prefer the other way, where all the parts for that specific step are packaged together. Makes a lot more sense and ultimately leads to a faster build. If you watch the live build of the Axial Raw SCX-10 2 Builders Kit, you would find that it took me about 2 hours and 20 minutes to assemble that truck. Yes, I didn't do the shocks because I knew I wasn't going to use them, but let's say you add 20 minutes to that. That whole thing was done in 3 hours. This truck will definitely take you longer than that to put together. I will note that on one of the parts trees, there was a mismold, and I didn't get one of the spring retainers for one of the rear shocks. Not a big deal, I was able to find a replacement in my parts bin. Once the build was complete, I painted and detailed the body. It does come with a nice selection of stickers, and overall it looks like a truck. Some people have said that it looks a little bit like an early Ford Ranger or Ford pickup truck. I see some resemblance, of course, but it is just sort of a generic pickup truck cab, and it does the job. It looks decent on the truck, the proportions are nice, and the plastic cage work is very nicely done. The kit does give you the option of using a molded, chromed inner grille, which also provides you with some light buckets up front. It's a nice addition and better than just a flat sticker, which they also include in case you don't want to cut up the body. I added my signature Ford Chevy logo on the top just to give it a bit of personality, and changed up some of the lettering so it says Turk instead of truck because, Scale Builders Guild. It's what we do. Mirrors are included as well as door handles, so there are some nice exterior details. Now let's take the body and cage off and get a good look at this chassis. Once you get the body off, immediately some similarities to other trail trucks that are currently on the market are evident. It definitely, totally looks like a bit of a ugly stepchild of an SCX-10 2 and a TRX-4. There are elements from both manufacturers that have made its way into the design of this truck, and some things that are like, whoa, that's exactly the same. How did they get away with that? Starting right from the top, the front of the chassis definitely has the same layout as an Axial SCX-10 2. A large rectangular battery tray on the passenger side and a servo mount on the driver's side. The front shock hoops are super similar to what's on the Axial trucks these days, and it's hard not to kind of notice that right away. And part of me just thinks it's lazy design work, or it's just efficiencies. The difference maker for the GMADE BOM is the transmission, its location, and how it all kind of goes together. This is where I had some serious questions about whether or not this was the right way to do something. The transmission itself is a two-piece unit that is built into the skid. So imagine, if you will, half of the transmission is on the bottom part of the skid and the other half is screwed onto that half from the top. And, you know, for weight distribution and efficiency, it's actually a really nice design. But going back to my intro, once you put this truck under a fair bit of load, and I'm not even really overpowering it, I'm just powering it. It's a Tiken Rock 412 2300 kV motor paired to a Tiken RX4. Under load, the halves of that transmission actually do come apart. And what happens is you get a lot of clicking and a lot of grinding. So there is some flex that's inherently built into this setup, and I don't know that there's any way around that. Is it a performance hindrance? Well, if you're trying to use this truck in an extreme way and in a competition way, then yeah, it's probably going to be a big deal. Is it going to wear on those components faster than it normally would? Absolutely. Is it a real big issue if you're just using this truck as a trail truck and just going out and having some fun? Probably not. One thing I forgot to mention is that GMADE claims that when they designed this transmission, they designed it in such a way that the front drive shaft spins in the reverse direction from the rear drive shaft to help in the reduction of torque twist. I'll let you be the judge. Towards the rear of this truck, you will notice that there is a cantilever rear suspension system. And I am definitely a big fan of cantilevers. I think they have their place, especially when you want to do a full flat, full depth bed on a truck. This is a great way to do it. It's not totally accurate, but it is a great way of hiding those shocks and not having to cut through your truck bed. I do think overall it's too loose of a rear end.
That's what she said. Or he said.
Full aluminum links are included. They don't thread super easily on construction, but you know, that's just, you know, it takes a few extra seconds to get the thread set properly, but once you do, they go together beautifully. They're nice and smooth, and they look really nice in this shiny, polished aluminum. The axles look very similar to the Curries that you can get from Vanquish products. They are plastic in construction, metal diff covers, and the front steering is you know, on par with all of the others on the market currently. Another thing to mention on these axles is that they have a proprietary output. So you are limited again to the drive shafts that are provided. It's not an optimal solution. It is something that is different about this truck, and different enough that it might influence your decision to purchase. If you count the box on the back of the cage, there are 3 electronics boxes. One for your receiver, one for I don't know what, and another one in a weird location under the battery tray at the front of the truck, which, you know, I mean, on a, you know, scale aspect, it kind of looks like a oil pan or the bottom of a motor or whatnot, but I don't know what the purpose of that box is, and it's not mentioned in the instructions. So hey, why don't you tell me what it's for? Put a comment below and tell me what you think that third electronics box would be for. Steel C-channel chassis, as you would expect to see. It is a bit wider at the rear because of that cantilever system, which doesn't affect performance in any way that I could see. And finally, wheels and tires that are included. These are a very, very weak foam. They're a big, aggressive tire, and they certainly suit the look of this truck. That said, there's not a lot of flex in that tire compound, so they're a little bit harder than I would like, but for an RTR tire, they'll certainly do the job. Wheels are plastic, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hole. they will require you to glue the tires to those wheels. And if I'm honest, going forward when I use this truck in the future, I'll be swapping those out as soon as possible. Man, that's a lot of info and a lot of talking and no comedy.
Are you not entertained?
I did take this truck out. That's why it's muddy. I figured why not take it out to the trails and see what this truck is capable of. The footage you've been watching was all recorded at 60 frames per second, so it is slowed down by half, but you will notice that it does a pretty decent job overall. It has some trouble on the rocks, and that's because I think this truck just has too much flex overall. Flex Friday is a thing. We need to stop that thing. So preemptively, I decided to limit the amount of travel on the shocks, and the best, quickest, easiest way to limit travel is to add a little bit of nitro fuel tube to the piston before you assemble the entire shock. 10 millimeters of tubing in the front and 5 millimeters of tubing in the rear. Even with that reduction, I still found that the rear end flexed way too much. The springs in the rear are definitely firmer than the ones up front, but they still offer so much articulation that I find that the axle just doesn't want to stay planted, and it just gets way out of shape and causes the truck to not be able to climb as well as it should on the rocks. So that's a fairly exhaustive look at the truck. Bottom line, is this something that you should have in your hobby room? Yes and no, and I'm going to give it a few caveats because I think it's important to give you both perspectives. If you don't have anything in this segment, if you don't have an SCX-10 II, if you don't have a TRX-4, if you don't have a Viterra Ascender, if you don't have an HPI Venture, in fact, this could be something that I would suggest. There are a few of those elements, those weird things that make you think, well, why did they decide to do it this way? This is really limiting my ability to either upgrade or change or modify to your own liking. And that's, I think, where this thing kind of falls apart a little bit. There isn't a lot of part support yet. There is some on its way, I know that for a fact. But you are kind of, again, limited to what exists in the GMADE universe. If you go with, say, an Axial truck or a Traxxas truck or an Ascender, there are going to be enough third-party manufacturers making upgrades and hop-ups and modifications to those platforms that you can still build a truck that is going to be the truck that you want it to be. I don't really know why I'm hesitating to say go ahead and buy it, but I just think that there's enough on the market that's already better than this. So I probably wouldn't rush out to buy one of these. I don't think there's a ton wrong with this, and I don't think you would be unhappy if you bought it, but if you have other trucks in this segment, you might go, whoa, I don't need this. I don't need something to put in the collection just to have it. There's not enough innovation or not enough difference going on here to make it a winner. It's definitely a great attempt, and I think that it will have its place and it will have its following. Those loyal to the GMADE brand are probably going to love this truck, but I wouldn't rush out and get another one. It's a solid effort, and I don't want to sound like I'm bashing it, because I'm not. It's a decent truck, but it just needed a bit more time on the design and testing phase. So that's it. That's the review. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, by all means, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Be sure to hit the notification bell so you get updates anytime I release a new video. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.